Now we get to move on to what constitutes an intraperitoneal organ and a retroperitoneal. So intraperitoneal organs are almost entirely surrounded by our peritoneum, which we'll go over. I have a picture right after this. And these types of organs are mobile, so they're freely moving around. Whereas retroperitoneal organs are only contacted with the their anterior surface is the only part that contacts the peritoneum, and they're fixed. So let me talk about what do we mean by when we talk about intra versus retroperitoneal. So if we have our abdominal cavity here, our abdominal cavity is filled with a fluid called the peritoneal cavity. And within that peritoneal cavity is only about 5 to 10 milliliters of fluid normally. So it's actually quite small, but our organs all start posterior to this peritoneal cavity, okay? Now, intraperitoneal organs are able to migrate into that peritoneum, and they don't actually enter the peritoneal cavity. I want you to think about the organ as if the organ was your hand and the peritoneal cavity was a balloon. So you're trying to push your hand into a balloon without popping it. So this organ will migrate into this balloon without popping it. So it's getting closer and closer, and soon enough, it's almost completely surrounded by peritoneum. Okay. Now, once an organ gets to the stage, you can see right here that there's a double layer of peritoneum, and this double layer is referred to as a mesentery. And a good way to, some people like to remember the intraperitoneal organs by this mnemonic salted spress. So you can think about all these different organs that are intraperitoneal. Again, I think some of the anatomical mnemonics are not the best, but it gives you an idea of some of the organs that are intraperitoneal. So these organs are freely movable and surrounded almost entirely by peritoneum. On the other hand, let's talk about some retroperitoneal organs. So these organs start in the back, but they don't move up into the peritoneal cavity. They kind of sit where they are. And you can see that only the front surface right here is in contact with the peritoneum, whereas the back surface is just fixed to the wall of the abdomen. So they're immobile. And a mnemonic that's commonly used for these types of organs is the Sad-Pucker mnemonic. And as a good rule of thumb, when you remember mnemonics, I gave you both of these mnemonics, but from a test taking perspective, it's smart to remember one thing and just know that the other thing is the other. So I would pick one or the other of these mnemonics. I like this mnemonic better because it reminds me of some of the retroperitoneal organs. And then I just assume that if it's not within this mnemonic, it's an intraperitoneal organ. So that's one of the good test taking tips that I would recommend going forward as well. Another thing I want to talk about is the two different types of peritoneum, visceral and parietal peritoneum. And this will play a role in a few of our disease conditions, especially appendicitis. So the visceral peritoneum is the peritoneum that surrounds the organ directly, and I'll highlight it in purple now. So you can see it surrounds the organ and its mesentery right here. And this has the same autonomic nerve supply as the organ itself, okay? And what that means is that if you ever have pain in this area or irritation, it's going to be poorly localizable. If you think about somebody who has a heart attack, it's not like they feel that pain directly in their chest, right? It's usually a diffuse pain that you might have jaw pain, you might have stomach pain. It's very poorly localizable. And the same thing can be said for this because it shares the same nerve supply as an organ. It's very poorly localizable. On the other hand, parietal peritoneum surrounds the abdominal cavity and not the organs. So I'll highlight it in yellow now. And this type of peritoneum has the same nerve supply as your abdominal musculature. And we have all had a muscular strain in our abdomen before after a long run, and you feel that localized pain in a specific area. So it's very well localized. And a common test question or a common disease that they like to highlight this process is appendicitis, where you first have inflammation of your appendix, and so you'll feel this diffuse pain throughout your stomach, kind of near your belly button. And as the disease progresses and the inflammation ends up reaching the wall, and the parietal peritoneum that's associated with that, you'll get a very localized pain in your right lower quadrant with appendicitis when it's worse. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like, comment, and subscribe for more content.